Well, we're almost out of the dumping grounds of January. Now we're in early February, which isn't much better, but let's review the Prodigy. The Prodigy stars Taylor Schilling, Jackson Robert Scott, and is directed by Nicholas McCarthy. What's up, guys? The Prodigy is a movie that I didn't even know existed until about a week ago. It's not something that was marketed aggressively, I guess you could say, but it did look interesting. There was potential there, so I was kind of looking forward to going to see this. And also, one of my Patreon patrons, and I consider him a friend, Gabriel Lewis, who actually sent me some really awesome posters, like from his childhood and everything. He happened to be down in Melbourne on business, and I met him after the movie, and we took this nice picture together, and we just talked horror for like an hour right outside of the theater. It was just so awesome. So Gabriel, it was so nice meeting you, and yeah, you're just a wonderful soul. But anyway, we're gonna get into the movie, The Prodigy. And one thing I did dig about The Prodigy was how it puts its cards on the table and says it's not about possession in this movie, because it comes across as kind of a possession movie if you look at the trailer, but it's not that at all. It's more about reincarnation. You see, at the beginning of this movie, we see this captive, and she breaks out of this, like, looks like a log cabin in a wooded area. And then she is rescued, but we notice that her hand is missing. And then the killer comes out, the serial killer by the name of Edward Skarka, and he is shot and killed. And at the same time, one of our main characters, the child in the movie, Miles, is born. And so right there we see that it's kind of reincarnation. So later in the movie we find out, you know, why people can be reincarnated. If like there was like a mission in their life that they hadn't finalized, then they could be reincarnated into a new body to finish that mission. And sometimes these people are good, and sometimes they are a serial killer like Edward was. So that's a pretty interesting plot, actually, that this serial killer dies and he comes back as this child, Miles. And so throughout most of the movie, it's really Edward like taking over Miles's body. There are times when Miles is trying to, you know, because it's two souls in this one kid's body, like fighting each other. And there are times when Miles comes through and he's asking his mother, you know, to help. I'm still in here, so don't give up on me. But as any serial killer would be, you know, Miles does some pretty horrible things throughout this movie. Right at the beginning, like he's being babysat, and he's just, you know, he's a mean-spirited soul. And the babysitter like comes down and she like steps on this glass on the steps. You know, it's moments like this throughout the movie where he's just completely being a real son of a bitch. Now, the mother is played by Taylor Schilling. You might know her from Orange is the New Black. And she does a pretty good job in this, actually. You know, she cares for her son. She's going through all these issues. It reminded me of, you know, the mother in The Exorcist and having Regan as a child. You know, can you imagine having this child that is almost evil, and, you know, you're constantly fighting with yourself because, you know, part of you knows that you have to kill the kid to get rid of the evil. But of course, a mother's not going to want to do that. And so that's what the character Sarah is dealing with throughout this movie. And one thing I did like about Miles is he like plays off of the weaknesses of others, like the father. He has a history because his father was abusive. And so he has, you know, he fights those demons. And of course, Miles plays off of that. Now, Sarah takes Miles to this hypnotist, Arthur Jacobson. And this is where I really had a problem with this movie. One of many problems with this movie. But after the hypnotist knows, you know, he's the one that tells Sarah, you know, your son, there are literally two souls inside the body. But so they have this session, and he knows how dangerous Miles is, or Edward, really. And of course, throughout the session, Miles blackmails him. He tells him that, you know, who's to say that, you know, you didn't like sexually molest me or something like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to say that I am completely normal, and you're going to let me leave here and go on with my life. And I was just calling bullshit on that, because if a psychiatrist knows how dangerous this kid is, wouldn't he like audio tape these sessions to protect himself? And, you know, if the sessions go all right as planned, then you can destroy the audio tapes, but at least protect yourself. And I thought that was just weak writing. You know, it was just put there in order for Miles to continue being a threat in the movie. Now, I will say there are some pretty shocking scenes in this movie with Miles, actually. Really in the last act. Up until that point, it's all pretty tame. But in the last act, there is this scene between Sarah and the first victim, because we know Miles wants to, his ultimate mission is to kill his last victim. And this victim is played by Brittany Allen, who was in the movie What Keeps You Alive, a movie that I just reviewed, actually, and I loved her in that movie, and it was a nice surprise to see her in this. She doesn't really get to do that much. She's only in like the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. But this is where the movie really falls apart for me. Without spoiling anything, the mother realizes that the way she can save her son, or possibly save her son, is to kill Edward's last victim, which any sane person would never do that. And there's no guarantee that you're going to save your son anyway. And so I was calling complete shenanigans and bullshit. And so you're getting my drift here that the script is my biggest problem with this movie. It's just one of those premises that's interesting, but it's been done so much better so many times. A lot of potential there in this movie, actually. But almost every scene, I was thinking, ooh, if they could, you know, like maybe do something like this in this scene, then this could be really awesome. If they could just go there, but they don't go there. You know, it gets really cliche. They don't really explain the science as much as they should. I don't think it's a very well-directed movie. It's stock. That's what this movie is, you know? There's no, like, scenes that are directed, like, avant-garde or just, you know, really amazingly. It's just kind of blah. And so, really, this movie is completely forgettable by the end of this thing. And like I said, there are some really interesting scenes in there. I think Miles as a character is interesting, but the kid that was playing Miles, not the best actor. And I know that, you know, we try to cut kids some slack in movies, but in horror movies, you got to give me a kid that's going to deliver, especially if he is the main focus of the movie. And I didn't think this kid was all that convincing in the movie. I mean, he did an okay job, but I don't think anything special. So overall, guys, I'm giving this movie a low humdrum. You know, I didn't regret it. I had a decent time watching it, but it's one of those movies that's going to be, it's already out of my brain, and I'm never going to watch it again. It's a early February movie. So post in the comments your thoughts on The Prodigy. Have you seen it? I think I even forgot the name of the movie like 3 times. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't really stick out. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, we do Freefall Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.